My girlfriend was 5 years my junior. She was a student at S University. I covered all her expenses, yet she was getting cozy with a male student she was sponsoring with my money. When I found out, I immediately froze her cards, canceled the contracts with her father's company. Her family faced bankruptcy, and she came crawling back, crying and kneeling, begging for my forgiveness. She said she knew she was wrong, that she loved me most of all. Get lost. Belated affection is worthless. At midnight, I closed the last file on a merger and acquisition. Outside the window, the city was a brilliant tapestry of lights. Just then, my phone screen lit up. A message from Vivian Ashwood popped up. Sincere, I had the kitchen keep some nourishing soup warm for you. Remember to drink it when you get back. Such a thoughtful gesture sent a wave of warmth through me. I rubbed the bridge of my nose and pressed the intercom. Charles, get the car ready. Half an hour later, I was at Hillcrest Manor. I opened the door to find Vivian curled up on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. The hem of her silk robe had ridden up to the top of her thighs. On the coffee table was the late-night snack the butler had prepared, truffle-stewed eggs with caviar. Beside it sat a newly delivered, limited-edition Hermes handbag, the satin ribbon on the box still untouched. Hearing me, she padded over barefoot to take my suit jacket, a fresh, clean scent wafting from her, as if she'd just stepped out of the shower. Sincere, you're back. Vivian kissed my cheek. The SA at Hermes said that Crocodile Birkin came in. There are only 3 in the world, and I undid my cufflinks as I walked toward the bedroom. If you like it, order it. You're the best, Sincere. She leaned in and kissed my cheek again. Oh, by the way, about that startup project from my underclassman Ethan Miller. I read his business plan, and it's really brilliant. Her eyes lit up, but then she bit her lip as if remembering something. But the deadline for financing is tomorrow, and he's short $50,000 for the security deposit. I stopped in my tracks. This was the 3rd time she had brought up his name this week. Ethan Miller was a scholarship student we were sponsoring. According to her, he was a hard worker with a gambling-addicted father and a hospitalized mother. She tugged at my sleeve, shaking it gently. He's trying so hard, and his family situation is incredibly difficult. His parents are just ordinary people. He gets by entirely on scholarships. $50,000? I pulled my arm away, took the black card from my wallet, and handed it to her. Handle it yourself. $50,000? That's less than the cost of a single gear in my watch, as long as she's happy. As she took the card, her fingertip lightly scratched my palm, a silent, familiar signal. We had rehearsed this routine countless times over the past 5 years, she would ask. I would give, and I'd receive an intimate night as my reward. But tonight, I turned away from her approaching lips. I still have some work to do. You go shower first. Oh, okay, she gave me a hug and skipped happily toward the bathroom. Soon the sound of running water filled the air. I stood before her vanity. Dozens of lipsticks were scattered across the crystal-encrusted surface, each tube bearing a custom gilded logo of her name. Suddenly I noticed a flyer for a university startup competition tucked underneath everything. In the winner's photo, a handsome young man in a cheap suit was smiling shyly at the camera. It was Ethan Miller. What was strange was the lower right corner of the photo, where someone had drawn a small heart in lipstick. I picked up the flyer. The back was printed with the contestant's contact information. Next to a QR code for his social media was a line of elegant handwriting, "Go, Ethan, your big sis." The sound of the shower stopped abruptly. A moment later, Vivian emerged, wrapped in a sheer negligee. She threw her arms around my neck and whispered, "Sincere, the luckiest thing that ever happened to me was meeting you." A long, passionate night began. I rarely visited Vivian's university, but today was an exception. The Hawthorne Group had a partnership program with S University, and as a member of the Board of Trustees, I was invited to attend an entrepreneurial forum at the business school. On stage, a professor in a sharp suit was speaking eloquently, but my gaze was fixed on a figure in the guest section, Vivian. She was wearing a beige suit from Chanel's latest collection, her long hair in soft curls. She held a pen, writing intently in a notebook. Intently! I narrowed my eyes. Leaning forward slightly, I tried to see what she was writing. Her notebook was tilted just enough for me to get a clear view of the dense script. "Ethan, you were amazing at the forum today. Your project is definitely going to be a success. I believe in you. Same place tonight?" A faint smile played on her lips as her fingertips gently caressed the page, as if stroking something precious. My expression remained impassive as I lifted my coffee and took a sip. Bitter. After the forum, I was waiting for my driver at the university gate. Vivian came jogging over, her cheeks flushed and her breathing a little ragged. "Sincere, what are you doing here?" She looked up at me, her eyes filled with surprise, as if she truly had no idea I would be attending. I looked down at her, my eyes landing on her slightly disheveled collar. A very faint lipstick stain, smudged on the pristine white fabric. It was a shade of pinkish orange, the same color she was wearing today. "The forum was interesting," I said flatly. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately linked her arm with mine. "Right? Ethan's project has so much potential." Even the dean was nodding when he gave his speech today. Her tone was filled with undisguised pride, as if showing off a prized pet she'd raised herself. I gently withdrew my arm, pulled a cigarette case from my inner jacket pocket, and slowly tapped one out. "Sincere?" she asked, looking at me with a hint of confusion. I didn't answer. I just lit the cigarette, took a deep drag, and let the smoke curl in my lungs before exhaling slowly. "Vivian," I began, my voice low, "have you been a bit too concerned with this underclassman lately?" Her expression froze for a second, then she smiled even more sweetly. "Of course not. I just think he's very talented and wanted to help him out." "Help him?" I scoffed, flicking the ash from my cigarette. "With my money?" Her smile finally faltered. In the distance, a red sports car was slowly approaching the Porsche 911 I'd bought her. The window rolled down, and in the driver's seat a handsome young man was looking our way. Ethan Miller. The color drained from Vivian's face. I crushed the cigarette, my gaze sweeping between her and Ethan before finally settling on her trembling fingertips. "Vivian," I asked softly, "tonight, are you taking my car home or his?" I had the driver take Vivian home first. She sat in the passenger seat, her fingers clenched tightly around the seatbelt, glancing at me from time to time as if she wanted to speak but didn't dare. I kept my head down, scrolling through financial reports on my tablet, my expression calm, as if the confrontation at the university gate had never happened. But some things, once torn open, can never be pretended away. The car stopped in front of Hillcrest Manor, and Vivian finally broke the silence. "Sincere, did you misunderstand something?" I looked up, my gaze landing coolly on her face. She bit her lip, her eyes turning red. "There's really nothing between Ethan and me. I think he has a lot of potential and wanted to give him a hand." "A hand?" I chuckled, swiped a finger across my tablet, pulled up a file, and handed it to her. "Transaction records from the last 3 months." The color drained from Vivian's face instantly. "Tuition, living expenses, startup capital, even his mother's medical bills," I read aloud in a slow, deliberate voice. "Vivian, you seem to care more about him than you do about me." Her fingers trembled, and a hint of panic crept into her voice. "Sincere, let me explain." "No need to explain." I took the tablet back, my tone even. "I have a business dinner tonight. I won't be back." The moment the car door closed, I saw her through the window, standing there, pale, as if all her confidence had been stripped away. But this was far from enough. Half an hour later, on the top floor of the Hawthorne Group Tower, my personal assistant, Charles Lawson, was already waiting in my office, holding a newly compiled file. "Mr. Hawthorne, I have the information," he said, handing me the folder. "Miss Ashwood's contact with Ethan Miller is more frequent than we initially thought." I opened the file, my eyes scanning pages of security camera screenshots, chat logs, and spending records. The first document contained the chat history between Vivian and Ethan. "Vivian, today's meeting was so boring. All I could think about was what you said last night, Ethan. I wear the shirt you got me every day. All my classmates are so jealous I have such a thoughtful big sis. Vivian, he's flying to Singapore tonight. Same place?" The second document was a statistical summary of their meetings. They met at least 3 times a week, at locations including cafes, the library, and even Ethan's rented apartment. The luxury goods Vivian bought for him, from clothes to watches, totaled over $300,000. The most ironic part was that Ethan had been bragging to his classmates about bagging a sugar mama. In the chat logs, he referred to Vivian as his ATM big sis. "What about Miller's background check?" "Average grades, failed 3 courses. Charles pulled up Ethan's academic record. But he's very active in student groups, often showing off the luxury gifts he receives from a beautiful older sister. Last month, a girl from the literature department gave him a Mont Blanc fountain pen. When Miss Ashwood found out, she immediately bought him a limited edition Patek Philippe. My finger paused on the last photograph under the cover of night. Vivian was on her tiptoes, kissing Ethan's cheek. The date on the photo was from the day I left on a business trip last month. Notify the finance department. Freeze all supplementary cards under Vivian Ashwood's name. My voice was terrifyingly calm. And prepare a complete financial audit and a legal assessment report. Mr. Hawthorne, are you planning to, since she enjoys playing this charity game so much, I said, turning back to my desk, then let's have her experience what it truly means to lose everything. Charles asked in a low voice. How should we proceed? I leaned back slowly in my chair. We're going to slowly, methodically ruin them. The prey is more interesting when you slowly corner it. The next day, at the S University Incubation Center. I stood at the end of the hall watching Ethan Miller in the conference room, excitedly explaining his startup project. The few investors sitting in the audience were all people I had arranged. His PowerPoint was flashy, but the content was hollow, with several data points clearly fabricated. But Vivian sat in the front row, looking up at him with eyes full of adoration. I walked slowly into the conference room. Every eye in the room instantly turned to me. Ethan's presentation came to an abrupt halt, his face stiffening. Vivian shot to her feet, her voice trembling slightly. Sincere, what are you doing here? I ignored her, walking straight up to Ethan and picking up his business proposal. Your business model is full of holes, and the financial projections are pure fantasy. I looked up, a cold smile on my face. And you have the nerve to ask for investment with this? The room was silent. Ethan's face went from pale to flushed, his fingers clutching the presentation script so tightly his knuckles turned white. Vivian rushed over and grabbed my sleeve. Sincere, Ethan is just inexperienced, but he's really trying hard. I turned to look at her, my voice gentle but every word a dagger. Vivian, are you sure you want to plead his case in front of all these people? Her hand flinched as if burned, and she let go of my sleeve. As I turned to leave, I heard Ethan's gritted teeth snarl from behind me. Vivian Ashwood, didn't you say he doesn't care how you spend his money? See? The drama of dogs turning on each other is always so entertaining. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of Hillcrest Manor, a glass of whiskey in my hand, the ice slowly melting in the amber liquid. When Vivian came in, she looked flustered. Sincere. Her voice trembled. I need to talk to you. I didn't turn around, just gazed at the bustling city lights outside. About what? She came up behind me, her fingers tentatively gripping the sleeve of my suit, just as she had countless times before when she wanted something. I know you're angry, but there's really nothing between Ethan and me. He's just an underclassman. An underclassman? I let out a soft laugh and finally turned around, my icy gaze fixed on her face. An underclassman worth over $300,000, an underclassman worth visiting at his apartment late at night? An underclassman worth. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the photo from the investigation. In the picture, Vivian was on her tiptoes, kissing Ethan on the lips. The color drained from her face. Her fingers went limp, releasing my sleeve, and she stumbled back a few steps. Sincere, let me explain. Her voice was already laced with tears. Explain what? I put my phone away, my tone terrifyingly calm. Explain how you used my money to keep another man? Or explain how you told me I love you most, Sincere, while sleeping with him? Her pupils constricted, as if she never expected me to be so blunt. No, Sincere, Vivian said desperately. I swear I never slept with him. And this, she pointed at the photo. I wasn't thinking straight that day. I'd had a little to drink. But it was just one kiss. She sobbed. I regretted it immediately. Apart from that one time, nothing else happened. You're so powerful you can check. There was really nothing else between us. I was wrong. I just got used to the flattery and the attention. I've always loved you, and I feel terrible about this. The investigation had, in fact, found no evidence that she had slept with Ethan. But so what? Is emotional betrayal not still betrayal? I advanced on her slowly until her back was against the cold wall, with nowhere to retreat. Vivian Ashwood. I leaned in, my voice a cold whisper by her ear. Do you know what I hate most? She trembled, too scared to answer. Betrayal. I didn't. Sincere, you can check. Emotional betrayal is still betrayal, I roared. Vivian froze, choking on her sobs. I straightened up and pulled a document from my inner jacket pocket, one I had prepared earlier, and held it in front of her. Asset freeze declaration. As of today, all bank cards, credit cards, and membership accounts in your name are frozen, I stated methodically. That engagement ring on your finger was my mother's family heirloom. Now give it back to me. Her tears finally fell, her hand flying to cover the ring as she shook her head desperately. Sincere, I know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. A chance? I sneered. I've given you far too many. I reached out, grabbed her wrist firmly, and began to slide the ring from her finger. Her nails dug into the back of my hand, drawing red lines, but I didn't even flinch. Charles, I called toward the door. My personal assistant immediately entered, holding a file. Miss Ashwood, this is a detailed list of all funds you have drawn from Mr. Hawthorne's accounts over the past 2 years, Charles said, his face impassive. This includes the $237,000 you transferred to Ethan Miller, as well as the luxury goods, medical bills, and other expenses paid on his behalf. The Hawthorne Group's legal department has already prepared a lawsuit. If you are unable to return the full amount within 30 days, we will sue you for embezzlement of property. Vivian's face went completely white. Her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the floor. No, Sincere, you can't do this. She looked up at me, her face a mess of tears. You promised I could have that money. You said I could spend it however I wanted. Yes, I did, I said, looking down at her, but I never said you could use my money to keep a boy toy. I turned and walked toward the door without a moment's hesitation. Wait, she suddenly lunged forward, wrapping her arms around my legs. Sincere, I really know I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Forgive me this one time, I promise. I looked down at her. Her exquisite makeup was smeared by tears. Her expensive dress wrinkled and pooled on the floor. The woman who was once as proud as a peacock now looked as pathetic as a stray dog. Vivian Ashwood, I slowly crouched down, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at me. Remember this day, because from this moment on you are bankrupt. 3 days later, on the S University campus forum, an anonymous post exploded. Finance department's goddess, Vivian Ashwood, exposed, cheating on billionaire fiancé, scammed him out of over $300,000. The post detailed their chat logs, intimate photos, and the bank transfers from Vivian to Ethan. Public opinion erupted. Vivian's social media accounts were unearthed, and the comment sections were flooded. She acts so high and mighty. Turns out she's just a gold digger. LMAO. The sugar daddy found out he was raising an ungrateful snake and kicked her to the curb. Heard she was thrown out of the mansion. Now she can't even afford tuition. Ethan didn't fare any better. His startup project was exposed for data fabrication. The investors collectively withdrew, and the university was even considering revoking his graduate school acceptance. Worse, the Hawthorne Group's legal department officially sent him a letter demanding the return of all improper gains. And all of this was just the beginning. Rainwater dripped down the rusty fire escape, forming a murky puddle at Vivian's feet. She clutched the handle of her suitcase, standing at the door of a low-income apartment. Rents $1,500 a month, deposit, and 3 months' rent up front. The landlord chewed on a piece of tobacco, spittle landing on the peeling doorframe. The girl next door works at a nightclub. It gets a little loud at night. The 150-square-foot room smelled of mildew, with yellowed mold spots visible where the paint had peeled. Vivian stood in the doorway, the hem of her Gucci dress brushing against a sticky stain on the frame. A loud argument, followed by the sound of a smashing bottle, erupted from the floor above. The noise made Vivian frown. This place is awful. Can you go any lower on the price? Take it or leave it. The landlord turned to go. If you don't want it, there's a line of people waiting to see it. Wait, don't go. Vivian called him back. She mechanically pulled out the last of her cash. When the rusty security door slammed shut behind her, Vivian buried her face in her hands and wept. She didn't want to go back home. Her father would kill her. She deeply regretted her foolishness. She wanted Sincere's forgiveness. At least living here she was closer to his home. Maybe if Sincere saw how miserable I am, he'd soften and forgive me. After all, he used to dote on me so much. A light rain began to fall. Vivian stood in front of the Hawthorne Group headquarters, soaked to the bone, her long hair plastered to her pale face. She had lost her high heels somewhere along the way. Her stockings were torn and soaked, and her expensive dress clung to her body like a wrinkled rag. A security guard stood by the entrance holding an umbrella, his eyes showing a flicker of pity but mostly indifference. Miss Ashwood, you should go home. The guard sighed. Mr. Hawthorne said he won't see you. She looked up, rainwater streaming down her lashes like tears. Please, just let me see him. Her voice was hoarse, her fingers digging into the pavement. Just for 5 minutes. No, 3 minutes will do. The guard shook his head. Mr. Hawthorne has an important meeting today. Please don't make my job difficult. Inside the building's glass doors, a few employees were stealing glances and whispering. Is that Vivian Ashwood? Wasn't she so glamorous before? Serves her right using Mr. Hawthorne's money to keep a boy toy. Now that she's been dumped, she's back playing the victim. I heard they even took back her apartment. She's living in a slum now. Vivian heard their piercing comments and wished the ground would swallow her whole. She had never been so humiliated. And she had never realized so clearly what she had lost. Flashback. 3 days ago when she was kicked out of Hillcrest Manor, she only had time to grab a handbag. All her cards were frozen. She couldn't even afford a taxi. She stood on the roadside trying to contact the besties who had once fawned over her, only to receive cold replies. Vivian, it's not that I don't want to help, but Mr. Hawthorne has made it clear. Anyone who helps you is going against him. Are you insane? You cross Sincere Hawthorne for some poor student? What's the point of coming to me now? In the end, she had to drag her suitcase to the nearest cheap rental she could find. The room was small and damp. The bedsheets had suspicious stains, and the bathroom faucet dripped endlessly. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the meager balance on her phone, and finally broke down completely. She truly had nothing left. Present day, the rain grew heavier. Vivian's legs were numb, but she stood there stubbornly, as if it were her last hope. Finally, a black Maybach glided into the building's underground parking garage. The window was half open, and she caught a glimpse of Sincere's profile, cold, indifferent, not even sparing her a single glance. Sincere. She shot to her feet and staggered after the car, but the security guard blocked her way. Sincere, let me explain, she screamed, her voice raw. I really know I was wrong, just give me one more chance. The car continued without pausing, disappearing into the garage and out of her sight. Vivian collapsed onto the ground, rainwater and tears mixing in her mouth, a bitter, salty taste. She knew she had been utterly abandoned. I stood at my office window, looking down at the tiny figure below. Charles stood behind me, reporting in a low voice. Mr. Hawthorne, Miss Ashwood is still standing downstairs. Should I leave her? I turned, taking a sip of the coffee on my desk. Let's see how long she can stand. And about Ethan Miller. Has the legal notice been delivered? Yes, but he currently has no ability to repay the debt. The university has also rescinded his scholarship. I chuckled softly. Then let's make him a little more desperate. Charles understood immediately and made a call. Inform all our corporate partners that the name Ethan Miller is to be placed on the Hawthorne Group's blacklist. I wanted them both to fully understand the meaning of no way out. The morning rush hour subway was packed like a can of sardines. Vivian hadn't wanted to take the subway, but she was out of money. She had an appointment at a consignment shop to sell one of her designer bags for some cash. On the train, she was squashed between the smells of sweat and breakfast buns. Someone stepped on her new, cheap high heel, knocking it off. As she bent down to retrieve it, a man behind her pushed impatiently. What's the hold up? The screen in the car was playing financial news. A glimpse of Sincere Hawthorne's profile flashed across it. She subconsciously touched her neck where a 7-figure diamond necklace used to sit. Now there was only a faint tan line. This is from the new collection, 5,800. The sales associate at the Dior boutique gently pushed away Vivian's hand as she tried to touch a dress. Would Miss Ashwood like to try it on? Her eyes scanned the pilled cuffs of Vivian's sweater. I'm not here to buy, Vivian said awkwardly. I have an appointment for second-hand consignment. Oh, I see, the associate pointed. The buyback counter is over there. A familiar mocking laugh came from behind her. Her former friend Isabel Richardson was clinging to her new boyfriend's arm, deliberately raising her voice. They let just anyone into these stores now. You'd think she'd look in a mirror first. Vivian didn't want to argue and hurried away. Isabel said to the new intern, That's the one who got dumped by Mr. Hawthorne. I heard she used his family's money to keep a boy toy. I have no idea why you even let her in under the authentication light at the consignment shop. The owner pointed to a tiny crack on the edge of Vivian's Birkin bag. There's a flaw here. 800 max. The owner put the bag back on the counter. Besides, it's last year's model. Everyone's carrying the Chanel 22 now. She nodded helplessly. Finally, she walked out of the store clutching a wad of crumpled bills. You have the nerve to come home? Her father, Walter Ashwood, smashed a teacup at her feet. This whole family was counting on you to marry into the Hawthorne family. And look what happened now, even my building materials orders have been canceled. Her mother, Eleanor Ashwood, stuffed a few bills into her hand. Your cousin needs a sales assistant at her boutique. Go for an interview tomorrow. She paused, then added, and don't tell them you're an Ashwood. Late at night, suggestive sounds echoed from the other side of the thin partition wall of her shared apartment. Vivian applied a cheap drugstore face mask, the harsh fragrance making her eyes water. Her phone suddenly lit up. A message from Ethan Miller flashed on the lock screen.
Vivian, I can't take it anymore. Sincere Hawthorne is trying to destroy us.
She turned off the screen. The neon lights from outside filtered through the grimy curtains, casting a fragmented shadow on the face that had once captivated the city's wealthiest bachelors. A crowd had gathered in front of the announcement board at S University. Ethan pushed through, his eyes fixed on the newly posted scholarship list. National scholarship, his name wasn't on it. How is this possible? He muttered, his fists clenched so tight they turned white. Students around him whispered, occasionally glancing his way with undisguised contempt. Did you hear? His startup project was all fake data. All the investors pulled out. Serves him right you don't leech off Sincere Hawthorne's girl and get away with it. Wow, a debt of over $100,000. He'll be paying that off for the rest of his life, right? Ethan spun around abruptly, shoving his way out of the crowd. In the dean's office, his academic advisor pushed a letter across the desk. Your graduate school acceptance has been revoked, the advisor said coolly. You failed the comprehensive evaluation. Ethan's throat tightened. Why? My grades were good enough. The advisor gave him a meaningful look. Character issues. We received an anonymous tip. He understood instantly Sincere Hawthorne's name didn't even need to be mentioned to destroy his entire future. In his shared apartment, the smell of mildew and instant noodles hung in the air. Ethan stared at his computer screen, the email in his inbox stinging his eyes. Dear Mr. Miller, we regret to inform you that the internship offer we extended has been rescinded due to strategic adjustments within the company. It was the only offer he'd received after sending out 27 resumes. And now, it was gone. He grabbed his phone and frantically dialed Vivian's number. No answer. 3 days later, a legal notice stamped with the red seal of the Hawthorne Group's legal department was delivered to him. Demand for repayment of improper gains, a total of $327,000. Ethan's hands began to shake. He could never earn that much money in his entire life. Late that night, Ethan cornered Vivian outside her apartment building. She looked even more haggard than the last time they'd met. Her once perfect makeup was gone, and her clothes were obviously cheap. Where's the money? Ethan grabbed her wrist, his voice raw. Hawthorne is demanding over $300,000 from me. Are you trying to get me killed? Vivian yanked her arm away, her eyes filled with disgust. Get lost, I can barely survive myself. If you hadn't seduced me, giving me money, would I be in this mess? Ethan's face was twisted with rage. Go beg Sincere Hawthorne, you slept with him for years, didn't you? A sharp slap landed across his face. You ruined me, Vivian screamed hysterically. You were the one who wanted all the luxury crap. You were the one who said all those disgusting things. Don't you dare play the victim. Now Ethan wiped a smear of blood from his lip and suddenly laughed. Vivian Ashwood, you think you're so clean? Who was the one sending me late-night texts? Who said Sincere Hawthorne didn't understand you? He took a step closer. If I'm going down, you're coming with me at the consignment shop. The owner examined the watch Ethan had brought in. A Patek Philippe? This has to be fake, the owner sneered. I'll give you $300 for it. This watch is worth over $200,000, Ethan yelled, losing control. Take it or leave it. The owner tossed the watch back. The Hawthorne Group put the word out. Who would dare buy anything from you? Ethan froze, a cold dread washing over him. Late that night, in his tiny, shared room, Ethan sat on his bed, staring at the business plan taped to the wall, what was once his dream. Now, it was covered in black holes from cigarette burns. His phone screen lit up with a text from an unknown number, Mr. Miller. regarding the reimbursement for your mother's surgery. An audit has revealed evidence of insurance fraud. The case has been turned over to the authorities." His hand began to tremble violently. With a final desperate cry, he hurled the phone against the wall. "Hawthorne?" He stared at the shattered screen on the floor, his expression shifting from despair to madness. "You really want to push me to the edge, don't you?" Starbucks, morning rush hour. There were coffee stains under Vivian's fingernails, and the cuffs of her cheap uniform were yellowed with milk stains. A burn mark scarred her wrist, a souvenir from spilling a hot Americano last week. Venti caramel macchiato. A man in a business suit tapped impatiently on the counter. "Can you hurry it up? I'm in a rush." "Right away, sir," she mumbled, keeping her head down. The espresso machine roared to life, steam hitting her red, swollen hands. The pain brought tears to her eyes. She mechanically sealed the cup. As she looked up to hand it over, her gaze drifted through the window and suddenly froze. The sun was shining brightly in front of the Cartier jewelry store. She saw Sincere, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, standing by the entrance. And beside him stood a tall woman with a sharp bob, a designer beige suit, and a discreetly expensive watch on her wrist. The store manager was personally escorting them out, his smile deferential. "Mr. Hawthorne, Miss Sinclair, the ring has been adjusted to your specifications." An assistant took the beautifully wrapped bag. Sincere turned his head slightly and said something to the woman beside him. She laughed, her expression radiating a confidence and poise Vivian had never possessed. They stood together, looking like they were born to stand side by side. The coffee cup slipped from Vivian's hand. Crash, scalding coffee splashed onto her pants and shoes, ceramic shards scattering across the floor. "What is wrong with you?" the customer roared. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs?" The manager rushed over and grabbed her arm. "Vivian, this is the third time this week. If you don't want to work here, then get out." But she couldn't hear him. Her eyes were locked on the scene outside. Sincere's gaze swept past the coffee shop, across the spot where she stood, without a hint of recognition, as if she were just another part of the scenery. He didn't even recognize her. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up silently to the curb. The chauffeur respectfully opened the door. Sincere placed a guiding hand on the smallest companion's back as they gracefully entered the car. The sunlight glinted off the polished exterior, so bright it hurt Vivian's eyes. "What are you crying for?" The manager shoved her. "Clean this mess up, then go to HR and collect your final paycheck." Your fired tears mixed with spilled coffee, creating a dirty stain on the front of her cheap uniform. She finally completely understood the difference between the clouds and the mud. She couldn't accept it. She decided to make one last, desperate gamble. If she couldn't be his wife, she'd settle for being his mistress or even his servant. That night a storm raged outside Hillcrest Manor. Rain streamed from the ends of Vivian's hair. She was soaked to the bone, standing outside the villa's wrought iron gate, her fingers gripping the bars. The light from the security booth illuminated her pale face. Her once perfect makeup had been washed away, leaving behind dark circles under her eyes. Her lips were purple from the cold. "Sincere, Sincere," she called out his name, her voice raw. I stood at the second-floor study window, coldly observing her pathetic state, like a stray cat caught in the rain, pitiful and pathetic. Charles walked over with an umbrella and asked in a low voice, "Mr. Hawthorne, should I have her removed?" I was silent for a moment, then turned and went downstairs. The moment the main gate opened, Vivian's eyes lit up. She stumbled inside, trembling as if grasping her last lifeline. "Sincere," she knelt on the ground, looking up at me, tears and rain streaming down her face. "I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." I looked down at her, not offering a hand, not saying a word. She shuffled forward on her knees and grabbed my pant leg, her voice choked with sobs. "I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have seen Ethan. But I swear, I never loved him. I've always loved you." Her hands clutched my trousers as if trying to rip her heart out to show me. "I don't need money or jewelry. I don't need anything. I just want to come back to you, to love you properly." Her hot tears fell onto my shoes. "Please, just give me one more chance." I slowly crouched down, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look up. My reflection stared back from her pupils, cold, calm, without a ripple of emotion. "Vivian," I let out a soft laugh. "Is it really me you love?" Her breath caught. "You love the power of the Hawthorne Group, the title of Mrs. Hawthorne, the life of extravagant spending. My fingers tightened slightly. If I were the one going bankrupt today, would you still be kneeling here telling me you don't need anything? The color drained from her face. I would. Do you even believe the words coming out of your mouth? I let go and stood up, looking down at her. You can't even fool yourself. Sincere, please take me back. Even if I can't be your wife, I can be your mistress, your maid. I just want to be with you. I don't care about anything else. I can't live without you. Unfortunately for you, I can live very well without you. Get out, I said coldly, turning to leave. Don't make me say it again. She collapsed on the floor as if her soul had been ripped from her body. Rainwater dripped from her hair, forming a murky puddle on the marble floor. After a long time, she finally staggered to her feet and walked back out the gate. The storm continued to pour, her figure blurred in the rain, eventually disappearing into the darkness, as if she had never been there at all. Hawthorne Group Tower. Top floor office. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's lights began to flicker on as dusk settled. I stood by the window, a freshly poured glass of whiskey in hand, the ice slowly melting in the amber liquid. Charles knocked and entered, holding a few documents. Mr. Hawthorne, the situation with Ethan Miller has been resolved, he said, placing the files on my desk. The university expelled him for academic misconduct. Debt collection is underway, but he has no assets to his name, so it's unlikely he'll be able to repay it anytime soon. I glanced at the file. It contained a photo of Ethan leaving the university. His once handsome face was now gaunt, his figure slumped and pathetic as he dragged his suitcase away. What about his mother's medical bills? It was verified. Certain procedures were indeed deemed excessive treatment. Charles adjusted his glasses. The hospital has refunded $150,000. The rest will be recovered in installments. I nodded, my gaze falling on another newspaper, a financial daily. Ashwood Building Materials capital chain snaps, multiple projects halted. The accompanying photo showed Vivian's father standing in front of an empty factory, his hair now mostly gray. The Ashwood family won't last the quarter, Charles stated calmly. The banks have already rejected their loan applications. I didn't say anything, just turned the page. In the corner of the news section, inconspicuous human interest story. Former socialite photographed working in coffee shop. Glory days are over. The photo showed Vivian in a Starbucks uniform, her hair messily tied back, head down as she wiped up a coffee spill. It was a blurry photo, but you could still see the dark circles under her eyes and her rough skin. The diamond earrings once worth $1 million had been replaced by a $10 pair of plastic studs from a street vendor. I folded the newspaper and tossed it into the trash. Outside, a helicopter bearing the Hawthorne Group logo flew across the sky. On my desk was the proposal for my latest project, a $3 billion investment in new energy development in Southeast Asia. Beside it was a proposal for a charity called the Firefly Project, aimed at sponsoring the education of young girls in impoverished mountain regions. The tip of my pen paused on the paper for a moment as I looked out the window. The city was as prosperous as ever, with its endless traffic and glittering lights, but some people and some things were now completely in the past. Notify the foundation. I signed my name, the strokes as sharp as a knife. The Firefly Project launches next week. The moment I set down my pen, the office door clicked quietly shut.